hello Tom.
Hello, again.
And we're going to talk about the differences between the Octi and the Mondeo. The first thing is obviously the price. Octavias have gone down in price significantly. You can pick these up for, I've seen at lowest £1,000 up to £2,000 for them, depending on mileage, condition, that sort of thing. But they're actually a very moddable car, and there's a lot of parts because they were made in the Volkswagen Audi group. There's like a parts bin special where you can pretty much pick up anything you want from the parts bin, which is pretty cool. But inside you get half leather seats, you get a leather steering wheel, you get aircon, climate control kind of arrangement. It's quite a nice spacious cabin. That's about it really. Obviously you get a decent sized engine, 1.8 turbo, 180 brake from standard. This is about 210 at the moment, but again that's what was made in this video, where it's had the mods done to boost it, so it's give or take 10-15 brake horsepower. It's similar to Tom's Mondeo, and that's the idea of the video. So Tom, what are your first impressions of being in here?
So obviously a comparison between mine and my Mondeo to this is the power delivery.
Yeah.
You know, the nice boost from the turbo, and since it's been remapped, you rarely do notice when that power comes on. That's like the most noticeable difference, I think, and it's a nice type of power. I mean, it seems quite addictive as well.
I can stop any time I want.
Okay.
I really can't. Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Because it's still quite linear. Yes, you have to wait for the turbo to kick in.
Yeah.
But because it's a turbo, it's a small turbo, you're not really waiting that long, which is quite nice actually. So, you know, coming out of corners, you can be on the power pretty much immediately. You're not left waiting too long.
It's a nice size, similar size in terms of length for the cars. I mean, I've got a bit more boot space, but that's the joy of having like a hatchback saloon almost.
Yeah, because the whole thing opens up. That whole, you know.
They do a saloon version, but I think the one I have is one to get if you want to utilise that space.
Yeah.
But, it's a nice cabin. I mean, nice leather seats, a comfortable seats, nice and bolstered.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because, like, when you look at how this was made, it was definitely the cheaper end of things, because the equivalent Golf got Recaros, but they were cloth,
right.
or they might have got the odd leather set. So these are half leather, half cloth, which is a weird thing. They're not Recaros; they're just sort of like just sportier seats. So you get a bit of a bolster. You get this weird white carpet. I don't know what.
Yeah, I noticed that. So you've got mats down, which is probably a wise decision.
Yeah, but they put a white carpet and then a white roof liner as well.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the idea, is make it look a little more spacious.
Yeah, the lighter colours kind of help with that, don't they?
Yeah.
And you got a black car, so it kind of lightens up the cabin.
Yeah. And now from a modifications point of view, now again, full disclosure, I didn't do the mods. These mods were done, and I've done a few things since I got it, but when I got it, it had a Miltec exhaust, silicone hoses throughout, a pipe across filter, a forge blow-off valve. I think it's been remapped. I'm thinking 210. I can't see a reason why it'd be higher than that. And then all round I've got IBAC performance springs and an IBAC anti-roll bar, which really does. That's what made the difference in the handling.
You think?
Yeah, I've been out in Octavias that haven't got the spring upgrades, and they can be a bit wallowy.
Okay.
So this really does help, especially when
it does feel planted for sure.
Yeah, with these roads, it definitely helps.
I haven't noticed it being. I'm kind of surprised you said it's been low, and it's on lowering springs, because the ride it hasn't been compromised. I don't think.
No, I think the springs are quite progressive. So like, you know, usually as you're driving around they're fine, but when you give it the beans, when you're sort of into the corners, that's when you notice it not rolling. You don't notice it crashy as much. And I've heard that from other people too. I suppose you'll also see the wing that I've put on the back there. That doesn't do anything. As much as I want to tell people it adds all that downforce, I doubt it does. But there it is. It's purely because I kind of had a vision of making the Octavia what it should have been when it left the factory, or at least what I think it should have looked like when it left the factory. And I just quite like it. It's inspired by the WRC model.
Yeah, it's an aesthetic thing, isn't it? So for example, the Lamborghini Countach didn't
Didn't need the wing.
Didn't need the wing.
Practically a Lamborghini I'm driving in.
Apparently it was illegal as well, so they put it on in the car park after the production. So it's just an aesthetic thing. Yeah.
But overall, yeah, so really, I like the car because, again, similar to the Mondeo, it's quite understated. Yes, it's got a slightly deeper front bumper, where the intercooler is on the side, it needs that air vent to come through. It's got 17-inch wheels as well. It did originally have a little spoiler on the boot that was there, but it was just there as a styling cue. But again, I like the understated side of things as well. But for me, the reason I chose this is because I like the tunability of it.
Yeah, that's the joy of a turbocharged engine.
Yeah.
You can customize it, and completely different to the engine at the Mondeo, where you can't really do much to it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of breathe for modifications if you want to kind of get a bit more power out of it.
But similar things between the Mondeo and the Skoda is that their product line is so wide that you can just go to other parts bins. Like you changed out the brakes for the ST brakes.
Yeah, from the Focus, so they are kind of interchangeable, and I didn't have to modify anything to do with the wheels or stuff like that, the bearings. So it was just a straight swap.
And the same thing with this, like you can go to a Volkswagen Audi parts bin and pull out things like the Recaro seats. You can even go as far as changing like chassis mounts and I can't remember what they're called now, but never mind. But stronger parts, like from Audi TT, for example, their cast arms are much stronger. So you can up the handling as well there as well. So there's a lot of things you can do to this without spending a ridiculous amount of money because the parts are already there.
I suppose it's the joy of any VAG group car is that there are other brands that you can get parts from because they're quite interchangeable.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, each their own, but for me that's what I quite like, is just taking a standard-ish model and just upping it. I'm not about going crazy into the modding of cars, but just making something that I'm really happy with.
Yeah, that's it with cars. You want to make something that you feel is yours, and there's not really two of the same.
No, exactly. But yeah, for me, I think for me right now, this is absolutely bang on what I want out of the car. I love the handling of it. As we're going through these B roads,
some lovely roads around here.
It's actually quite confident and inspiring when you're getting into a corner, coming out of a corner. You're not sort of being flung everywhere. I did used to have budget tyres on here, which was a big mistake, so I changed them up for Michelin Pilot Sports, and that just changed everything. Like getting into and out of a corner, no issues at all. Even in the wet, they just hang on.
Nice. The Pilot Sport 4?
They are, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard good things about them.
They're fantastic. They literally do probably the biggest bang for buck that I could have done, and it's weird because the tyres are quite boring, really.
Yeah, but they're arguably the best modification you can do to a car. They're the things that will change it the most. As nice as an exhaust adds the sound and the thrill to a car. I think, like you said, the best upgrade you can do to a car is change the tyres.
Change tyres, and then you doesn't matter how powerful the car is, if you can't get the power down, there's no point to it.
No, exactly.
It's a perfect time to be doing an inside review because it's now tipping it down.
Heavens are open.
Yeah. But for me, I said my 5 favourite things of this are, I love the understated side of things. I love the tunability of the engine and just how responsive it can be. Obviously the turbo cross. But things like the practicality, similar to the Mondeo, I've got massive boot, big seats there as well. Other things I like. I think the gearbox is actually quite nicely made as well, although I did blow mine apart earlier this year, but that's because it's an old gearbox. It's not, it's a 20-year-old car, 20-year-old box. It wasn't going to last forever, let's be honest. I actually like the styling of it. I know it's very boxy, but that's something I like as well. I like the power delivery, as you said earlier, it's quite linear. It's a 1.820 valve as well.
Okay.
So I think it's like three inlet valves, 2 exhaust valves on each cylinder. So it's only a 4-cylinder engine, but 5 valves per cylinder, which is pretty cool. I think it's a very well put together car that is quite reliable. I haven't had much go wrong with it other than the standard perishable stuff.
Right, so we had a few camera difficulties, so we just switched cameras, but because the heavens have now opened, we're just going to do wrap up in the car. Ultimately, £3,000 does get you a lot of car for your money, whatever you decide to do, whether you want to buy a car that's £1,200–1,500 and then spend the rest on performance upgrades and whatever, or if you want to go down the route of buying a car like Tom's Mondeo, because you will get a lot of car for your money. I know where I sit, because that's just the person I am. I enjoy taking cars and doing the mods on that side of things. But I really do like Tom's Mondeo, and if this Octavia didn't exist, that's probably the car I'd go for, even with the MPG. I think because that's the price you pay for performance. I really like it. I love the interior. I think it's fantastic. I love the subtlety. With the subtle styling mods that set it apart from a normal Mondeo. I think that's really nice. So yeah, ultimately, like I said, £3,000 gets you a lot of car for your money, but it's entirely up to you. But I do really like Tom's car.
Great, I'm glad you enjoy it. I didn't know
get out.
I didn't think you'd choose it as your choice over this if you didn't get an Octavia.
I would. I think you get a lot for it. That's the thing. I'm all about value.
Value for money.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's where this also sits in that bracket of good value for money. I mean, we mentioned about the positives of the car.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've gone for a Mondeo over something like this, but this wasn't something in my mind when I was looking for a second car, because it is understated. Not many people know about it. I obviously knew about Octavia vRSs, but I didn't know the Gen 1.
No.
I hadn't heard of it before. I've seen them about, but I just didn't come under my radar. The fact you can buy it so cheaply and then modify it and spend similar money, for value for money, it just comes back to that, doesn't it? You're getting a great package regardless of which option you go for.
Yeah, and I think especially around Britain's roads, something like this, or the Mondeo, is almost perfect, because you're getting great performance. Both these cars handle really well.
Yeah.
So you've got the confidence in the B roads, but then also if you wanted to go on a road trip to, for example, I go to Wales quite often, you go to Lake District, they just sit at 70 for hours on end, and it's not a chore at all. So yeah, that's wrapped up. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. No car's better or worse than the other, because each car is entirely subjective, but ultimately you do get a lot for your money. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Do check out A Man and His Watch. I will put a link right here. And also I'll put the links to his social media in the description below. But Tom, thanks very much.
Yeah,
I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.